Alright, we should be back. I might be a bit quieter than usual, sorry about that if I am. Lamp has apparently been adjusted the wards again. And yeah, we're not exactly sure how that works. So, I'll do my little bit as I do. My name is SkitterSkreetch, you can call me Skitter, I'm a rat. I'm being forced to read books in this cursed library I'm trapped in by the lamp in the corner. I don't know why. Not really feeling it today, so I'm just gonna get started, I think. So we're picking back up with Dubliners by Joyce. This book is essentially a collection of short stories that is sort of connected by a theme. They don't have a narrative thread running through them really that I've noticed, but they all take place in the city of Dublin, I believe, and they all have some sort of reflection on interpersonal relationship, from what I'm gathering. And we got through 8 of them yesterday, but apparently I'm quite half the book, so I'm going to go for it today and see how we go. Alright, counterparts. The bell rang furiously, and when Miss Parker went to the tube, a furious voice called out in a piercing North of Ireland accent, "Send Farrington here." Miss Parker returned to her machine, saying to a man who was writing at her desk, "Mr. Elaine wants you upstairs." The man muttered "blasting" under his breath, and pushed back his chair to stand up. When he stood up, he was tall and a great bulk. He had an hanging face, dark wine-coloured, with fair eyebrows and moustache. His eyes bulged forward slightly, and the whites of them were dirty. He lifted up the counter and, passing by the clients, went out of the office with an heavy step. He went heavily upstairs until he came to the second landing. The door bore a brass plate with the inscription, "Mr. Elaine." Here he halted, puffing with the labour, vexation, and knocked. The shrill voice cried, "Come in." The man entered in Mr. Elaine's room. Simultaneously, Mr. Elaine, a little man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and a clean-shaven face, shot his head up over a pile of documents. The head itself was so pink and hairless that it seemed like a large egg reposing on the papers. Mr. Elaine did not lose a moment. "Barrington, what is the meaning of this? Why have I always to complain again? May I ask you why you haven't made a copy of that contract between Bodley and Kerwin? I told you it must be ready by 4 o'clock. Mr. Shelley said, sir. Mr. Shelley said, sir. Kindly attend to what I say, and not the wisdom of what Mr. Shelley said, sir. You have always some excuse or another for shouting one. Let me tell you that if the contract is not copied before this evening, I will lay them out before Mr. Crosby. You hear me now?" "Yes, sir." "You hear me now?" "Aye, and another little matter. I might as well be talking to the wall as talking to you. I understand for once for all that you get a half hour for your lunch and not an hour and a half. How many courses do you want, I'd like to know? You mind me now?" "Yes, sir." Mr. Elaine bent his head upon this pile of papers. The man stared fixedly at the polished skull which directed the affairs of Crosby and Elaine, gauging its fragility. A spasm of rage gripped his throat for a few moments, and then passed, leaving after it a sharp sensation at first. The man recognised the sensation, and felt that he must have a good night's drinking. The middle of the month will pass, and if he could get the copy done in time, Mr. Elaine might give an order on the cashier. He stood still, gazing fixedly at the head upon the pile of papers. Suddenly, Mr. Elaine began to upset all the papers, searching for something. Then, as if he had been unaware of the man's presence at that moment, he shot up his head again, saying, "Eh? You going to stand there all day? Upon my word, Farrington, you take things easy. I was waiting to see. Very good, you needn't wait to see. Go downstairs and do your work." The man walked heavily towards the door, and as he went out of the room, he heard Mr. Elaine cry after him. If the contract were not copied by evening, Mr. Crosby would hear it. He returned to his desk in the lower office and counted the sheets which remained to be copied. He took up his pen and dipped it in the ink, but continued to stare stupidly at the last words he had written. "In no case shall the said Bernard Bodley be." The evening were falling. In a few minutes they would be lighting the gas. Then he could write, felt that he must slip the first in his throat. He stood up from his desk and, lifting the counter as before, passed out of the office. As he was passing out, the chief clerk looked at him inquiringly. "It's all right, Mr. Shelley," said the man, pointing with his finger to indicate the objective of his journey. The chief clerk glanced at the outright, but seeing the now bureau complete, offered no remark. As soon as he was on the landing, the man pulled a shepherd's plaid cap out of his pocket, put it on his head, and ran quickly down the rickety stairs. In the street door, he walked on furtively on the inner side of the path towards the corner, and all at once dived into a doorway. You were now safe in the dark snug of O'Neill's shop, and, pulling up the little window that looked into the bar with his inflamed face, colour of dark wine or dark meat, he called out, "Here, Pat, give us a GP like a good fella." The curate brought him a glass of plain porter. The man drank it at a gulp and asked for a caraway seed. He put his penny on the counter and, leaving the curate to grope for it in the gloom, retreated out of the snug as furtively as he had entered it. Darkness, accompanied by a thick fog, came in upon the dusk bedroom, and the lamps in Easter Street had been lit. The man went up by the houses until he reached the door of the office, wondering whether he could finish his coffee in time. On the stairs, a moist, pungent odour of perfume saluted his nose. Evidently Miss Delacour had come while we were out with O'Neill. He crammed his cap back again into his pocket and re-entered the office, assuming an air of absent-mindedness. "Mr. Elaine has been calling for you," said the chief clerk severely. "Where were you?" The man glanced at the two clients who were standing at the counter as if to intimate their presence prevented him from answering. As the clients were both male, the chief clerk allowed himself a laugh. "I know that game," he said. 12 times in one day is a little bit. Well, you better look sharp and get a copy of our correspondence in the Delacour case for Mr. Elaine. This addressed in the presence of the public, his run upstairs to the porter, who got down so hastily, confused the man, and as he sat down at his desk to get what was required, he realised how hopeless was the task of finishing his copy of the contract before 5:30. The dark, damp night were coming, and he longed to spend it in the bars, drinking with his friends and with the glare of gas and the clatter of glasses. He got out the Delacour correspondence, passed out of the office. Yet Mr. Elaine would not discover that the last two letters were missing. The moist, pungent perfume lay all the way up to Mr. Elaine's room. Miss Delacour were a middle-aged woman of Jewish appearance. Mr. Elaine was said to be sweet on her, or on her money. She came to the office often and stayed a long time when she came. She was sitting beside his desk now in her aroma of perfumes, smoothing the handle of her umbrella and nodding a great black feather in her hand. Mr. Elaine had swiveled in his chair to face her, throwing his right foot jauntily upon his left knee. The man put the correspondence on the desk and bowed respectfully. Neither Mr. Elaine nor Miss Delacour took any notice of his bow. Mr. Elaine tapped a finger on the correspondence and then flicked it towards him as if to say, "That's all right, you can go." The man returned to the lower office and sat down again at his desk. He stared intently at the incomplete phrase. "In no case shall the said Bernard Bodley be." He thought how strange it was. The last 3 words began with the same letter. The chief clerk began to worry Miss Parker, saying she would never ever let his pipe come to post. The man listened to the clicking of the machine for a few minutes, and then set to work to finish his copy. His head was not clear. His mind wandered away to the glare and rattle of the public house. It were a night for hot punches. He struggled on with his copy. When the clock struck 5, he had still 14 pages to write. Lastly, he couldn't finish it in time. He longed to execrate aloud, to bring his fist down on something violent. He was so enraged that he wrote Bernard instead of Bernard Bodley, and had to begin again on a clean sheet. He felt strong enough to clear out the old office single-handed. His body ached to do something, to rush out and revel in violence. All the indignities of his life enraged him. But he asked the cashier privately for an advance. No, the cashier was no good, no damn good. He wouldn't give an advance. He knew where he would meet the boys, Leonard and O'Halloran and Nosy Flynn. The barometer of his emotional nature was set to his fellow riot. His imagination had so abstracted him that his name was called twice before he answered. Mr. Elaine and Miss Delacour were standing outside the front counter, and all the clerks had turned round in anticipation of something. The man got up from his desk. Mr. Elaine began a tirade of abuse, saying that 2 letters were missing. The man answered that he knew nothing about them. He had made a faithful copy. The tirade continued. It was so bitter and violent that the man could hardly restrain his fist from descending upon the head of the mannequin before him. "I know nothing about any other 2 letters," he said stupidly. You know nothing. Of course you know nothing, said Mr. Lane. Tell me, he added, answered thus for approval of the lady beside him. You take me for a fool? You think me not a fool? The man glanced from the lady's face to the little egg-shaped head and back again, and almost before he was aware of it, his tongue had found a felicitous moment. I don't think, sir, he said, that's a fair question to put to me. There were a pause and a very breathing of the clerk. Everyone was astounded. The author of the witticism no less than his neighbour. Miss Delacour, who was a stout, amiable person, began to smile broadly. Mr. Lane flushed to the hue of a wild rose, his mouth twitched. Dwarf's passion. He shook his fist in the man's face till it seemed to vibrate, with the knob of some electric machine. You impertinent ruffian, I'll make short work of you. Wait till you see. You'll apologise to me for impertinence, you'll quit the offices. You'll quit this. I'm telling you, or you'll apologise to me. He stood in the doorway opposite the office, watching to see if the cashier would come out alone. All the clerks passed out, and finally the cashier came out with the chief clerk. There was no use trying to say a word to him when he was with the chief clerk. Now further his position were bad enough. He'd been obliged to offer an abject apology to Mr. Lane for his impertinence, but he knew what an honest nest the office would be for him. He could remember the way in which Mr. Lane had hounded Pete out of the office in order to make room for his own nephew. He felt savage and thirsty and revengeful and annoyed with himself and with everyone else. Mr. Lane would never get an hour's rest. His life would be over for the first time. He made a proper fool of himself this time. Could he not keep his tongue in check? They had never pulled together from the first, he and Mr. Lane. Ever since the day Mr. Lane had overheard him mimicking his North of Ireland accent from the huge Higgins in Miss Park. That had been the beginning of it. He might have tried Higgins for the money. Sure, Higgins never had anything for himself. A man with 2 establishments to keep up, of course he couldn't. He felt his great body begin aching from the comfort of the public house. The fog had begun to chill him, and he wondered could he touch Pat in O'Neill's. He could not touch him for more than a bob. Bob was no use. He must get money somewhere or other. He spent his last penny for the GP. Then it would be too late to get money anywhere. Suddenly, as he was fingering his watch chain, he thought of Terry Kelly's pawn office in Fleet Street. That was dark. Why didn't he think of it sooner? He went through the narrow alley of Temple Bar, muttering to himself that they could all go to hell. He was going to have a good night of it. The clerk and Terry Kelly said crown. The signer held out for 6 shillings. In the end, the 6 shillings was allowed him literally. He came out of the pawn office joyfully, making a little cylinder of the coin between his thumb and fingers. On Westmoreland Street, the footpath was crowded with young men and women returning from business. Ragged urchins ran here and there, yelling out the names of the evening edition. The man passed through the crowd, looking on the spectacle generally with proud satisfaction, staring masterfully at the office goers. His head was full of the noises of tram gongs and swishing trolleys. His nose already sniffed the curling fumes of punch. As he walked on, he reconsidered the terms in which he was narrating the incident in the boy. So I just looked at him coolly, I looked at her, and I looked back at him again, taking my time, I don't think that's a fair question to put to Mr. Lane. Nosey Flynn was sitting up in his usual corner with Davy by him, and when he heard the story, he stood Farrington a half-way, telling the smartest things he'd ever heard. Farrington stood a drink in his turn. After a while, O'Halloran and Paddy Leonard came in, and the story was repeated again. O'Halloran stood pale as a malt, hot all round, and told the story of the retort he had made to the chief clerk. He was in Callan's of Frown Street. But, as the retort were after the manner of the liberal shepherds in it, Picklewood, he had to admit was not so clever as Farrington. This Farrington told the boys to polish off that and have another. Just as they were naming their poisons, who should come in but Higgins? Of course, he had to join with the others. The men asked him to give his version of it, and he did so with great vivacity. The sight of 5 small hot whiskies was very enjoyable. Everyone roared laughing when he showed the way in which Mr. Lane shook his fist in Farrington's face. Then he imitated Farrington, saying, "And here was my Nance, as cool as you please," when Farrington looked at the company out of his every dirty eye, smiling, arms drawing forth stray drops of liquor from his moustache, brigade and rolling. When that round were over, there were a pause. O'Halloran had money, but neither of the other 2 seemed to have any, so the old party left the shop somewhat regretfully. The corner of Duke Street, Higgins and Nosey Flynn delved off to the left, while the other 3 turned back towards the city. Rain was drizzling down the cold streets, and when they reached the ballast office, Barrington suggested the Scotch ale. The bar was full of men, and loud with the noise of tongues and glasses. Three men pushed past the winding match sellers at the door and formed a little party at the corner of the counter. They began to exchange stories. Lennon instructed them to a young fellow named Weathers, who was performing at the Tivoli as an acrobat and knockabout artiste. Barrington stood a drink all round. Weathers said he would take a small Irish and a full Irish. Barrington, a definite notion of what was what, asked the boys would they have an full Irish too. But the boys told him to make theirs hot. Talk became theatrical. Iron stood around, and then Barrington stood another round. Weathers protesting the hospitality was too Irish. He promised to get them in behind the scenes and introduced them to some nice girls. Ireland said that he and Leonard would go, but Barrington wouldn't go because he was a married man. Barrington's heavy, dirty eyes leered at the company and poked him. He understood he was being chafed. Weathers made them all have just one little tincture and promised to meet them later on at Mulligan's and Albrook Street. When the Scotch house closed, they went round to Mulligan's, went in the parlour at the back, and O'Halloran ordered a small hot specials all round. They were all beginning to feel mellow. Barrington was just standing another round when Weathers came back. Much to Barrington's relief, he drank a glass of bitters. Funds were running low. They had enough to keep them going. Presently, two young women with big hats. The young man in the tracksuit came in and sat at the table close by. Weathers saluted them and told the company that they were out too early. Barrington's eyes wandered at every moment in all directions of one of the young women. There was something striking about her. An immense scarf, peacock blue muslin, round about her hat, and not a great bow under her chin. She wore bright yellow gloves, reaching to the elbow. Barrington gazed admiringly at the plump arm which she wore very often, and much grace. And when, after a little time, she answered his gaze, he admired still more her large, dark brown eyes. The oblique staring expression was fascinating. He glanced at him once or twice, and when the party were leaving the room, she brushed against his chair and said, pardon, in a London accent. He watched her leave the room in the hope she would look back at him. He was disappointed. He cursed his want of money, cursed all the rounds he had stood, particularly all the whiskey and the fallen Irish, which was the Weathers. There was one thing he hated, it was a sponge. He was so angry that he lost count of the conversation with his friend. When Paddy Leonard called him, he found that they were talking about feats of strength. Weathers was showing his bicep muscle to the company, boasting so much that the other two called Barrington to uphold the national honour. Barrington pulled up his sleeve accordingly and showed his bicep muscle to the company. The two arms were examined and compared, and finally it was agreed to have a trial of strength. The table cleared, and the two men rested their elbows on it, clasping hands. Paddy Leonard said go. Each was to try to bring down the other's hands on the table. Barrington looked very serious and determined. The trial began. After about 30 seconds, Weathers brought his opponent's hand slowly down to the table. Barrington's dark, wine-coloured face flushed darker still with anger and humiliation, and he repeated as though it was strict. You're not to put the weight of your body behind it. Play fair, he said. Who's not playing fair? Come on again. Best go out. The trial began again. Rain stood out on Barrington's forehead, and the pallor of Weathers' complexion changed to peony. Their hands and arms trembled under stress. After a long struggle, Weathers again brought his opponent's hand slowly on the table. There were a murmur of applause from the spectators. Pirati, who was standing beside the table, nodded his red head towards the victor and said, with loudest familiarity, that's the man. What the hell you know about it? Fiercely. Turn on the nose. What do you put in your gap for? Shh, said O'Halloran, observing the violent expression of Barrington's face. Only up, boys. Now just one little One little sman more, then we'll be off. A very solemn-faced man stood at the corner of a Cornwall bridge, waiting for the mount tram to take command. He was full of smouldering anger and revengefulness. He felt humiliated and discontented. He did not even feel drunk. He had only 2 pence in his pocket. He cursed everything. He had done for himself in the office, pawned his watch, spent all his money, and he had not even got drunk. He began to feel thirsty again, and he longed to be back again in the off-weekly pub again. He had lost his reputation as a strong man, having been defeated twice by a mere boy. His heart swelled with fury, and when he thought of the woman in the big hat that brushed against him as he parted, his fury nearly choked him. His tram let him down at Shelbourne Road, and steered his great body along in the shadow of the wall of the barracks. He loathed returning to his home. When he went in by the side door, he found the kitchen empty, the kitchen fire nearly out. He bawled upstairs, "Ada! Ada!" His wife were a little sharp-faced woman, bullied her husband when he was sober, and was bullied by him when he was drunk. He had 5 children. A little boy came running down the stairs. "Who's that?" said the man, peering through the dark. "Me, Pa." "Who are you, Charlie?" "No, Pa, Tom. There's your mother. She's out at the chapel." "That's right. Did you think of leaving any dinner for me?" "Yes, Pa. Light the lamp." "What do you mean by having the place in the dark? The other children in bed?" The man sat down heavily on one of the chairs, and the little boy lit the lamp. He began to mimic his son's flat accent, saying to himself, "At the chapel, at the chapel." When the lamp was lit, he banged his fist in the face and shouted, "What's for my dinner?" "I'm going to cook it, Pa." The man jumped up furiously in front of the fire. "On that fire? You got the fire out, I thought I would do that." He took a step to the door to seize the walking stick, standing behind him. "I'll teach you to let the fire out," he said, rolling up his sleeve in order to give his arm a free play. The little boy cried, "Oh, Pa," and ran whimpering around the table. The man followed him and caught him by the coat. The little boy looked about him wildly, but seeing no way of escape, fell upon his knees. "Now you'll let the fire out next time," said the man, striking him viciously with the stick. "Take that, you little whelp." The boy uttered a squeal of pain as the stick cut his thigh. He clasped his hands together in the air and his voice shook with fright. "Oh, Pa," he cried, "don't beat me, Pa, and I'll say a Hail Mary for you. I'll say a Hail Mary for you, Pa, if you don't beat me. I'll say a Hail Mary." That's the end of the counterparts. It's quite a grim book in some parts. It's quite a grim book indeed. What do we see here then? Clearly we see the evils of drink expressed. Common theme, noble. And of course we see again interpersonal. Then the people drinks and regret and to a rail with a man who's superior. The head clerk knowingly slipping out for drinks, cautioning against it 5 times a day. And of course the abuse that gets equal in the family when things go wrong. Layers to it, but none of them especially pleasant. Right, let's push on, shall we? Clay. The matron had given her leave to go out as soon as the woman's tea were over. Maria looked forward for evening now. The kitchen was spick and span. The cook said you could see yourself in the big copper boilers. The bar were nice and bright, and on one of the side tables were 4 very big bambrooks. These bambrooks seemed uncut. If you went closer, you would see they had been cut in a long, thick, even slice, and were ready to be handed round to tea. Maria had cut them herself. Maria were a very, very small person indeed. She had a very long nose and a very long chin. She talked a little through her nose, always soothingly. "Yes, my dear. No, my dear." She always sent for when the women quarrelled over their tubs, and always succeeded in making peace. One day the matron had said to her, "Maria, you were a veritable peacemaker." The sub-matron and 2 of the board ladies had heard the compliment, and Ginger Mooney were always saying what she wouldn't do to the dummy who had charge of the irons who wanted Maria. Everyone was so fond of Maria. The women would have their tea at 6 o'clock. She would be able to get away before 7. From Ballsbridge to the villa, 20 minutes. The villa to Drumfonda, 20 minutes. 20 minutes to buy the things. She would be there before 8. Took out her purse with a silver cloth and read again the words. "Present from Belfast." We were very fond of that purse, because Joe had bought it to her 5 years before, when he and Alpenny had gone to Belfast on a Whit Monday trip. In the purse were 2 half-crowns and some coppers. She would have 5 shillings clear after paying tram fare. What a nice evening they would have, all the children singing. Only Sheriff and Joe wouldn't come in drunk. They were so different since they began drinking. Often he had wanted to go and live with them, but she would have felt herself in the way, for Joe's wife were ever so nice with her, and she had become accustomed to the life of the laundry. Joe were a good fellow. She had nursed him and Alfie too. And Joe used often to say, Mama is Mama, but Maria is my proper mother. After the break-up at home, the boys got her that position with the Dublin by Lampmont laundry. She liked it. She used to have a bad opinion of Protestants. Now she thought they were very nice people. A little quiet and serious, still very nice people to live with. Then she had her plants in the conservatory. She liked looking after them. She had lovely ferns and wax plants. Whenever anyone came to visit her, she always gave a visitor one or two slips from the conservatory. There was one thing she didn't like, and that were the tracts on the wall. But the matron was such a nice person to deal with, so genteel. When the cook told her everything was ready, she went into the woman's room and began to pull the big bell. In a few minutes, the women began to come by, twos and threes, wiping their steaming hands in their petticoats and pulling down the sleeves of their blouses with their red steaming arms. They settled down before their huge mugs, which the cooks in a dummy filled with hot tea, already mixed with milk and sugar in huge tin cans. Maria superintended the distribution of the banquet and saw that every woman got her full slice. There were a great deal of laughing and joking during the meal. Lizzie Fleming said Maria was sure to get the ring, and though Fleming had said that for so many hours, Maria had to laugh and say she didn't want any ring or man either. And when she laughed, her grey-green eyes sparkled with disappointed shyness. The tip of her nose nearly met the tip of her chin. Then Ginger Mooney lifted up her mug of tea, closed Maria's out, while all the other women clapped with their mugs on the table. And she was sorry she hadn't a sup of water to drink again. Maria laughed again till the tip of her nose nearly met the tip of her chin, till her minute body nearly shook itself asunder, for she knew that Mooney meant well, though of course she had the notions of common woman. It wasn't Maria glad when the women had finished their tea, the cook and the dummy began to clear away the tea. She went into her little bedroom and, remembering that the next morning was a mass morning, gave the alarm from 7 to 6. Then she took up her working skirt and her house coat and laid her best skirt out on the bed and her tiny dress boots beside the foot of the bed. She changed her blouse too, and as she stood before the mirror she thought of how she used to dress for mass on Sunday morning when she was a young girl. She looked with great affection at the diminutive body which she had so often adorned. Despite its years, she found it a nice tidy little body. When she got outside, the streets were shining with rain. She was glad of her old brown raincoat. The tram was full, and she had to sit on a little stool at the end of the car, facing all the people with their toes barely touching the floor. She arranged in her mind all she was going to do, thought how much better it was to be independent, to have your own money in your pocket. She hoped they would have a nice evening. She was sure they would. She couldn't help thinking what a pity it was Alfie and Joe were not speaking. They were always falling out now. When they were boys together, they used to be the best of friends. Such a life. She got out of the tram at the pillar, spirited her way quickly among the crowd. She went in a Downs cake shop. The shop was so full of people that for a long time before she could get herself attended to. She bought a dozen of mixed penny cakes, and at last came out of the shop laden with a big bag. Then she thought what else she could buy. She wanted to buy something really nice. She was sure to have plenty of apples and nuts. She didn't know what to buy, and all she could think of was cake. She decided to buy some plum cake. Down's plum cake had not enough almond icing for it, so she went over to a shop in Henry Street. Here she were a long time in suit herself. The stylish young lady behind the counter, who were evidently a little annoyed by her, asked her if it were a wedding cake she wanted to buy. That made Maria blush and smile at the young lady. The young lady took it all very seriously, trying to cut a thick slice of plum cake, passed it up, and said, 2 and 4, please. She thought she would have to stand in Drumcondra tram, but none of the young men seemed to notice her. An elderly gentleman made room for her. He was a stout gentleman who wore a brown hard hat, had a square red face, and greyish moustache. Maria thought he was a colonel-looking gentleman. She reflected how much more polite he was from the young men, who simply stared straight before them. The gentleman began to chat with her about Halloween and the rainy weather. He supposed the bag was full of good things for the little ones, that it were only right that the youngsters should enjoy themselves when they were young. Maria agreed with him, favoured him with a demure nods and ends. You were very nice with her. When she was getting out the canal bridge, she thanked him and bowed. He bowed to her and made that and smiled agreeably. And while she was going up along the terrace, bending her tiny head under the rain, she thought how easy it was to know a gentleman, even when he is a drop cake. Everybody said, "Oh, here's Maria," when she came to Joe's house. Joe was there, and had come home from the business. All the children had their Sunday dresses on. There were 2 big girls in front, next door, and games were going on. Maria gave the bag of cakes to the eldest boy, Alfie, divided. Miss Donnelly said it was too good of her to bring such a big bag of cakes, and made all the children say, "Thanks, Maria." But Maria said she had brought something special for Papa and Mama, something they would be sure to like. She began to look for her pumpkin. She tried in Down's bag, and in the pockets of her raincoat, and then the all stand. Nowhere could she find it. Then she asked all the children early in the meeting if they were mistaken. The children all said no, and looked as if they did not like it. Everybody had a solution to the mystery, and Miss Donnelly said it was the thing that Maria left behind her in the tram. Maria, remembering how confused the gentleman with the brass moustache had made her, coloured with shame and vexation and disappointment. The thought of her failure of her little surprise, and the 2 and 4pence she had thrown away for nothing. She nearly cried out loud. But Joe said it didn't matter. They had her sit down by the fire. They were very nice with her. He told her all that went on in his office, beating for her a smart answer which he had made to the manager. Maria did not understand why Joe laughed so much at the answer he had made. She said the manager must have been a very overbearing person to deal with. Joe said he wasn't so bad when he knew how to take them. They were a decent sort so long as he didn't rub him the wrong way. Miss Donnelly played the piano for the children, and they danced and sang. Then the 2 next door girls handed out the nut. Nobody could find the nutcracker, and Joe was nearly getting cross over it, and asked how they expect Maria to crack nuts without the nutcracker. Maria said she didn't like nuts. He won't bother about her. And Joe asked would she take a bottle of stout. Miss Donnelly said there were port wine too in the house, and she could try that. Maria said she would rather they didn't ask her to take anything, and Joe insisted. So Maria let him have his way, and they sat by the fire, talking over old times. Maria thought she would put in a good word for Alfred. But Joe cried that God must strike him stone dead if he ever spoke a word to his brother again. And Maria said she was sorry she had mentioned the matter. Miss Donnelly told her husband it was a great shame for him to speak that way of his own flesh and blood. Joe said that Alfie were no brother as his, and they were nearly a row on the end of it. And Joe said he would not lose his temper on account of the night, and asked his wife to open some more stout. The 2 next door girls had arranged some hours Eve games, and soon everything were merry again. Maria was delighted to see the children so merry, and Joe and his wife in such good spirits. The next door girls put some saucers on the table, and then led the children up to the table blindfolded. One got the prayer book, and the other 3 got the water. And where one of the next door girls got the ring, Miss Donnelly shook her finger, blushing both girls, as much to say, "Oh, I know all about it." They insisted then on blindfolding Maria, leading her up to the table to see what she would get. And while they were putting on the bandage, Maria laughed and laughed again till the tip of her nose nearly met the tip of her chin. They led her up to the table amid laughing and joking, and she put her hand out in the air as she was told to do. She moved her hand about here and there in the air, descended on one of the saucers. She felt the soft, wet substance with her fingers, and was surprised that nobody spoke and took up her bandage. There were a pause for a few seconds, then a great deal of scuffling and whispering. Somebody said something about the garden, and at last Miss Donnelly said something very cross to one of the next door girls, and told her to throw it out at once. That was no play. Maria understood that it was wrong that time, and so she had to do it over again, and this time she got the prayer book. After that, Miss Donnelly played Miss Cloud's reel for the children, and Joe made Maria take a glass of wine. Then they were all quite merry again. Miss Donnelly said Maria would enter the convent before the year were out, so she had got the prayer book. We had never seen Joe so nice to her as he was that night, so full of pleasant talk and reminiscences. She said they were all very good to her. At last the children grew tired and sleepy, and Joe asked Maria would she not sing some little song before she went, one of the old songs. Miss Donnelly said, "Do, Maria." So Maria had to get up and stand beside the piano. Miss Donnelly played the children to be quiet and listen to Maria's song. Then she played the prelude and said, "Now, Maria." And Maria, blushing very much, began to sing in a tiny quavering voice. She sang, "I dreamt that I dwelt." And when she came to the second verse, she sang again, "Dreamt that I dwelt in marble halls, vassals and serfs at my side. And all who assembled within those walls, I was the oak and the pride. I had riches too great to count for boast, but I, ancestral man, I also dreamt which pleased me most, and loved me still the same." No one tried to show her a mistake. When she had ended her song, Joe was very much moved. He said there were no time like the long ago, and no music grim like poor old Val, whatever other people might say. His eyes filled up so much with tears that he could not find what he was looking for. In the end, he went to ask his wife to tell him what he thought. That's the end of Chloe. I genuinely cannot tell whether or not these are connected or not. Because when you have the slightly drunken man here, Joe, who has the story about the manager, and it could be variant of the last one, from the last one. It could not be. It's hard to tell. Because if it is the same man, we're seeing this in a different light. And we have a different focus character. Maria, so tiny and sort of lost in herself and doesn't seem sure of who she is. Seems happy enough. I really don't understand this. And I'm trying to take my time a bit more with it, read a bit slower and clearer. Really get a sense of it. I don't know if you understand it, but I can follow along. Another drink of water. But what do we have here? We have family, connection. But more than that, we have someone who is beloved by them, and yet seems so terribly isolated. Maria, who everyone dotes on, who has no plans for a life, has no wish to be married. Lives a day one at a time. So sad about the company. I don't know what to make it up. I don't know what to make it at all. Maybe I'm trying too hard. Maybe I just need to push through. We'll carry on now anyway. A painful case. Mr. James Duffy lived in Chapalism because he wished to live as far as possible from the city in which he was a citizen, because he found all the other suburbs of Dublin mean, modern and pretentious. He lived in an old summer house, and from his windows he could look into the disused distillery outwards along the shallow river which Dublin was built. The lofty walls of his uncarpeted room were free from pictures. He had himself bought every article of furniture in the room: a black arm bedstead, an arm washstand, 4 cane chairs, clothes rack, coal scuttle of fender and irons, a square table, on which lay a double desk. A bookcase had been made with an alcove by the means of shelves of white wood, tablecloth, white bedclothes, and a black and scarlet rug covered the top. The land mirror hung above the washstand, and during the day, a white shade lamp stood as the sole ornament of the mantel. The books on the white wooden shelves were arranged from below upwards according to bulk. The complete Wordsworth stood at one end of the lower shelf, and a copy of the Maynooth Catechism, sewn into the cloth cover of a notebook, stood at one end of the top shelf. The writing materials were always at the desk. In the desk lay a manuscript translation of Altman's Michael Kramer, the stage direction of which were written in lovely, and a little sheet of paper held together by a brass plate. In these sheets, a sentence was inscribed with thumb times, and in an ironical moment, the headline of an advertisement for Bile Beans pasted on the distant version. On lifting the lid of the desk, a faint fragrance escaped, the fragrance of new cedarwood pencils, and a bottle of gum, or an overripe apple which might have been left there forgotten. Mr. Duffy abhorred anything which betokened physical or mental disorder. A medieval doctor would have called him saturnine. His face, which carried the entire tale of his years, was brown, thin, Dublin street. On his long and rather large head were a dry black hair, and a tawny moustache did not quite cover an unamiable mouth. His cheekbones also gave his face an arch character. There were no archness in the eyes, which, looking at the world from under their tawny eyebrows, gave the impression of a man ever alert for great redeeming instinct in others, but often disappointed. He lived at a little distance from his body, regarding his own acts with doubtful side glance. He had no autobiographical habit which led him to compose his mind from time to time a short sentence about himself, containing a subject in the third person, and a predicate in the past. He never gave alms to beggars, and walked firmly, carrying a stout easel. He had been for many years cashier of a private bank in Bagon Street. Every morning he came from Chapalism by tram. At midday he went to Danvers, his lunch, bottle of lager beer and a small tray full of arrowroot biscuits. 4 o'clock he was set free. He dined in an eating house in George Street, where he felt himself safe from the society of Dublin's gilded youth, and where there was certain plain honesty in the bill of fare. His evenings were spent either before his landlady's piano or roaming about the outskirts of the city. His liking for Mozart's music brought him sometimes to an opera or concert. These were the only dissipations of his life. He had neither companions nor friends, church nor creed. He lived a spiritual life without any communion with others, visiting his relatives at Christmas and escorting them to the cemetery when they died. He performed these 2 social duties for old dignity's sake, but conceded nothing further than conventionally regulated civic life. He allowed himself to think that in certain circumstances he would rob his bank, but, if these circumstances never arose, his life rolled out evenly. An adventurous tale. One evening he found himself sitting beside 2 ladies in the rotunda. The house, dimly peopled and silent, gave distressing prophecy of failure. The lady who sat next to him looked round at the deserted house once or twice, and then said, "What a pity this is such a poor house tonight. It's so hard on people who have to sing like convention." He took the remark as an invitation to talk. He was surprised that she seemed so awkward. While they talked, he tried to fix her permanently in his memory. When he learned that the young girl beside her was her daughter, he judged her to be a year or so younger than himself. Her face, which must be handsome, remained intelligent. With an oval face, strongly marked features. The eyes were dark blue, steady. The gaze began with a defiant note, but was confused by what seemed a deliberate swoon of the pupil, the iris, revealing for an instant a temperament of great sensibility. The pupil reasserted itself quickly, its half-disclosed nature fell again under the reign of prudence. Now, Astrakhan jacket, modelled in her bosom a certain fullness, struck a note of defiance more definite. He met her again a few weeks afterwards at a concert in Ellsworth Terrace. He seized the moment where her daughter's attention was diverted to become intimate. She alluded once or twice to her husband, but her tone was not such as to make the allusion a warning. Her name was Miss Simcoe. Her husband's great-grandfather had come from Leghorn. Her husband was captain of a mercantile boat playing between Dublin and Holland. They had 1 child. Meeting her a 3rd time by accident, he found courage to make an appointment. She came. This was the first of many meetings. They met always in the evening and chose the most quiet quarters for their walk together. Miss Duffy, however, had a distaste for underhand ways and, finding they were compelled to meet stealthily, forced her to ask them to her house. Captain Sinico encouraged his visit, thinking that his daughter's hand was in question. He dismissed his wife so sincerely from his gallery of pleasures that he did not suspect that anyone else would take an interest in her. As the husband were often away, the daughter out doing music lessons, Mr. Duffy had many opportunities of enjoying the lady's society. Neither he nor she had any such adventure before, neither were conscious of any incongruity. Little by little he entangled his thoughts with hers. He lent her books, provided her with ideas, shared his intellectual life with her. She listened to all. Sometimes, in return for his theories, she gave out some fact of her own life. With almost maternal solicitude, she urged him to let his nature open to the full. She became his confessor. He told her that for some time he had assisted at the meetings of an Irish Socialist party, where he had felt himself a unique figure among a score of sober workmen in a garret lit by an inefficient oil lamp. When the party had divided into 3 sections, each under its own leader, and in its own garret, he had discontinued his attendance. The workmen's discussions, he said, were too timorous. The interest they took in the question of wages was inordinate. He felt that they were hard-featured realists, and they resented his activity which was the product of leisure, not within their reach. No social revolution, he told her, would be likely to disrupt Dublin for some centuries. She asked him why he did not write out his thoughts. For what? He asked, doubtlessly. To compete with phrasemongers incapable of thinking consecutively to such suggestions. To submit himself to the criticisms of the obtuse middle class, and trust his morality to policemen and his fine arts to impresarios. He went often to her little cottage outside Dublin. Often they spent their evenings alone. Little by little, as their thoughts entangled, they spoke of subjects less remote. Her companionship was like a warm soil about their gossip. Many times she allowed the darkness to fall upon them, refraining from lighting the lamp. Dark, discreet rooms. Their isolation, the music that still vibrated in their ears, united them. This union exalted him, bore away the rough edges of his character, emotionalized his mental life. Sometimes he caught himself listening to the sound of his own voice. He thought that in her eyes he would ascend to angelic stature, and as he attached the fervent nature of his companion more and more closely to him, he heard the strange impersonal voice which he recognised as his own, insisted on the soul's incurable loneliness. We cannot give ourselves, we are our own. The end of these discourses was that one night, during which she had shown every sign of unusual excitement, Miss Sinico caught up his hand passionately and pressed it to her cheek. Mr. Duffy was very much surprised. Her interpretation of his words disillusioned him. He did not visit her for a week. Then he wrote to her asking her to meet him. As he did not wish their last interview to be troubled by the influence of their ruined professional, they met in a little cake shop near the park gate. It was cold autumn weather. In spite of the cold, they wandered up and down this road to the park for nearly 3 hours. They agreed to break off their intercourse. Every bond, he said, was a bond to sign. When they came out of the park, they went in silence towards the tram. The issue began to tremble so violently, fearing another collapse on her part, they had a goodbye quickly and left her. A few days later, he received a parcel containing his books and music. 4 years passed. Mr. Duffy returned to his even way of life. The room still bore to the orderliness of his mind. A new piece of music encumbered the music stand in the lower room, and on the shelves stood 2 volumes by Nietzsche, Thus Spake Zarathustra and The Gay Sign. He wrote seldom in the sheet of paper which lay on his desk. One of his sentences, 2 months after his last interview with Miss Sinico, read, "Love between man and man is impossible, as there must not be sexual intercourse or friendship between man and woman." Love between man and man is impossible, because there must not be sexual intercourse. Friendship between man and woman is impossible, because there must be sexual intercourse. He kept away from Constance, lest he should meet her. His father died. His junior partner of the bank retired. Still every morning he went into the city by tram, and every evening walked home from the city after having dined moderately in George's Street, and read the evening paper for dessert. One evening they were about to put a morsel of corned beef and cabbage into his mouth, his hand stopped. His eyes fixed themselves on a paragraph in the evening paper, and he propped against the walkway. He replaced the morsel of food in his plate and read the paragraph attentively. Then he drank a glass of water, pushed his plate to one side, doubled the paper down before him between his elbows, and read the paragraph over and over again. The cabbage began to deposit a cold white grease on his plate. The girl came over to him to ask if his dinner not properly cooked. He said it was very good and empty mouthfuls of it. And he paid his bill and went out. He walked along quickly through the November twilight, stout hazel sticks darkening the ground regularly. The fringe of the buff male peeping out of the side pocket of his tight, very reefer overcoat. On the lonely road which leads from the park gate to the chapel zone, he slackened his pace. His stick struck the ground less emphatically, and his breath issuing irregularly, almost with a sighing sound, condensed and went down. When he reached his house, he went up at once to his bedroom and, taking the paper from his pocket, read the paragraph again by the failing light of the window. He read it not aloud, but moving his lips as a priest does when he reads the prayer as he crept up. This was the paragraph. Death of a lady at Sydney Parade. Painful fact. Today at the City of Dublin Hospital, the Deputy Coroner, in the absence of Mr. Lothar, held an inquest on the body of Miss Emily Sinico, aged 43 years, who was killed at Sydney Parade Station yesterday evening. The evidence showed that the deceased lady, while attempting to cross the line, was knocked down by the engine of the 10 o'clock slow train from Kingston, thereby sustaining injuries of the head and right side, which led to her death. James Lennon, driver of the engine, stated that he had been in the employment of the railway company for 15 years. And hearing the guard's whistle, set the train in motion, and a second or two afterwards brought it to rest, in response to a loud cry. The train were going slowly. He turned, the railway porter, stated that the train were about to start. He observed a woman attempting to cross the line. He ran towards her and shouted, but before he could reach her, she was caught by the buffer of the engine and fell to the ground. The juror, "You saw the lady fall?" Witness, "Yeah." Police Sergeant Crowley positively proposed that when he arrived, he found the deceased lying on the platform, apparently dead. He had the body taken to the waiting room, pending the arrival of the ambulance. Constable 57E corroborated. Dr. Alkin, assistant house surgeon at the City of Dublin Hospital, stated that the deceased had 2 lower rib fractures and had sustained severe contusion of the right shoulder. The right side of the head had been injured in the fall. The injuries were not caused sufficiently to cause death in a normal person, death, in his opinion, had been probably due to shock and sudden failure of the arms action. Mr. H.B. Patterson Finlay, on behalf of the railway company, expressed his deep regret at the accident. The company had always taken every precaution to prevent people crossing the lines except by bridges, both by placing notices in every station, and by the use of patent spring gates at level crossings. The deceased had been in the habit of crossing the lines late at night from the platform to platform, and, in view of certain other circumstances of the case, he did not think the railway officials were to blame. Captain Sinico, Leoville, Sidney Gray, husband of the deceased, also gave evidence. He stated that the deceased was his wife, not in Dublin at the time of the accident. He had arrived only that morning from Rotterdam. They had been married for 22 years and had lived happily until about 2 years ago, and his wife began to be rather intemperate in her habits. Miss Mary Sinico said that of late her mother had been in the habit of going out at night with high spirits. She, witness, had often tried to reason with her mother and had induced her to join her league. They were not at home until an hour after the incident. The jury returned a verdict in accordance with the medical evidence and exonerated Lennon from all blame. The deputy coroner said it were a most painful case and expressed great sympathy with Captain Sinico and his daughter. He urged on the railway company to take strong measures to prevent the possibility of similar accidents in the future. No blame attached to anyone. Mr. Duffy raised his eyes from the paper and gazed out of his window on the cheerless evening landscape. The river lay quiet beside the empty distillery. Time and time a light appeared in some house on the loop of the road. What an end! The old narrative of their deaths revolted him to think that he had ever spoken to them, and what he held sacred. It read their faces, the inane expression of sympathy, cautious words for report of one over the concealed details of commonplace vulgar death of Captain Stomach. Not merely had she degraded herself, she degraded him. He saw the squalid character of vice, miserable and melodious. His soul's companion, he thought the oblong wretches whom he had seen carrying cans and bottles were filled by the barman. Just God, what an end. Evidently she had been unfit to live, without any strength of purpose, an easy prey to habit, one of the wrecks on which civilization had been reared. That she could have sunk so low. Was it possible he had deceived himself slightly about her? He remembered her outburst of that night and interpreted it in the harshest sense that he had ever done. He had no difficulty now in approving the course he had taken. As the light failed and his memory began to wander, he thought her hand touched his. The shock which had first attacked his stomach was now attacking his nerves. He put on his overcoat and hat quickly and went out. The cold air met him on the threshold, crept into the sleeve of his coat. When he came to the public house at Chapel's Bridge, he went in and ordered a hot punch. The proprietor served him obsequiously, but did not venture to talk. Her father sits working men in the shop discussing the value of the gentleman's estate to Captain Kildare. They drank at intervals from their huge pint tumblers and smoked, spitting often on the floor, and sometimes trailing the sawdust over their spits with their heavy boots. Mr. Duffy sat on his stool and gazed at them, without seeing or hearing them. After a while they went out and called for another punch. He sat a long time over it. The shop was very quiet. The proprietor sprawled on the counter reading the Herald and yawning. Now and again a tram was heard swishing along the lonely road outside. As he sat there, driven over his liver, and broken alternately two images which he now conceived. Her, he realised that she was dead. Nay, she had ceased to exist. She had become a memory. He began to feel ill at ease. He asked himself what else could he have done. He could not have carried on a comedy of deception with her. He could not have lived with her openly. He had done what seemed to him best. How was he to blame? Now that she was gone, he understood how lonely her life must have been, night after night alone in that room. His life would be lonely too. To leave too die, at least this became a memory. If anyone remembered him. It was after 9 o'clock when he left the shop. The night was cold and gloomy. He entered the park by the first gate and walked along under the gaunt trees. He walked through the bleak alleys where they had walked 4 years before. She seemed to be near him in the darkness. At moments he seemed to feel her voice touch his ear, her hand touch his. He stood still to listen. Why had he withheld life? Why had he sentenced her to death? He felt his moral nature falling to pieces. When he gained the crest of the magazine hill, he looked along the river towards Dublin, the lights of which burned redly hospitably in the cold night. Looked down the slope, and at the base, the shadow of the wall of the park, saw some human figures lying. As being on the verge of love filled him with despair. He ignored the rectitude of his life. He felt that he had been the outcast from life's field. One human being had seemed to love him, and he had denied her life and happiness. He had sentenced her to ignominy, death of shame. He knew that the prostrate creatures down by the wall were watching him and wishing him gone. No one wanted him. They were an outcast from life's field. He turned his eyes to the grey gleaming river, winding along towards Dublin. Beyond the river he saw a goods train winding up to Kingsbridge station, up a worm with a fiery end, winding through the dark, obstinately and laboriously. Passed slowly out of sight. Still he heard in his ears the laborious drone of the engine reiterate the syllables of her name. He turned back the way he'd come, hearing the engine pounding in his ears. He began to doubt the reality of what memory told him. He halted under a tree and allowed the rhythm to die away. He could not feel her near him in the darkness, nor her voice. He waited for some minutes listening. He could hear nothing. Perfect silence. Listen again. Perfect silence. He felt that he was alone. That's the end of a painful day. I see so much in everyone, and yet I see so much. I know I see so much. I feel still that I miss it. I mean, what can I say about this one? You see a man so obsessed with his idea of himself that he does not live. We see him go through the motions of falling apart the same way he tempted her apart. We see a man so moral that he is unendingly cruel in his morality. I don't know. I meant to do 6 of these tonight, and I've done 3 so far. I'm starting to feel tired. My throat is not well suited. But I don't know what to do really other than continue on. I suppose I could put them on. Do 3 more tomorrow and then I'll big one the last day. A 4-day up there. Wouldn't be unreasonable. I did 1 of them before and I plan to do it in 5. I'm going for about half an hour. I don't know. There is so much to do. So much of it. And here I sit reading alone. Alone, God. That's the rubbish. I never had anyone to dismiss. No one to disdain. I'm an outcast from life. Got no action or choice of mine. I can see a small hole and fall into it. Ah, life. Ah, life. I'll be done with it. Thank you if you watched this.